get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that. Believe that.
Yo, what is up, Ravens flock? Welcome. This is the very first edition of the Everything Ravens podcast. This is a show that I've wanted to start for a very long time, and I'm very excited to finally be able to start this. I plan to bring you guys this show each and every Friday. My name is Logan, and I'm the host of the show. I run the Instagram account at everything_Ravens, which is the largest Ravens fan base community on Instagram, currently sitting at about 37,000 followers as I start this recording. Make sure you follow that account, as well as follow the other account, which is at Everything Ravens Podcast on Instagram, for all the latest updates involving this podcast. Today on the show, we're going to discuss the 2020 draft. That's the hottest topic going on right now. We're going to discuss what we thought about these picks and how we think these picks are going to pan out in Baltimore for the coming years. But before we get into all of that good stuff on this pod, let's meet the co-host for today's episode.
Hey there, guys. My name is Kyrie. I'm a Penn State student studying sports journalism. I've been a Ravens fan since 2006, and a favorite Ravens moment of mine has to be the Mile High Miracle.
Flacco stepping up and throwing deep down the far sideline. Caught! Into the end zone! Touchdown, Jacoby Jones!
Joe Flacco is one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. 70-yard touchdown pass, Jacoby Jones. I literally jumped off my couch and just screamed top of my lungs. Definitely my favorite moment.
Hey guys, I'm Brooks. Happy to be here. I'm going to be a sports and entertainment management major at the University of South Carolina next fall. Lifelong Ravens fan. Favorite Ravens moment? Not really a moment, more of a game, but the Ravens-Vikings 2013 snow game.
Joe Flacco. Back in the end zone. That's Marlon Brown for a touchdown.
4 touchdowns in the final 90 seconds, including the Marlon Brown back to the end zone game winner. So the Ravens won 29-26. Just a great game.
Alrighty, so we had a great draft, in my opinion. What do you guys think about the draft?
10 picks, obviously, you have to evaluate it looking at that. We had more picks than any other team, or at least in the first 2 days of the draft. So we really took advantage of it across the board and got some impact players.
I think Eric DeCosta once again shown that he's literally an apprentice of Ozzie Newsome. He just knows how to play the draft. I thought the draft was A+, just home run.
Alrighty, so let's start it off. First off, Patrick Queen.
Throws down the middle, intercepted. Patrick Queen coming the other way.
This was my favorite pick of the draft. You guys know from my account, I pressed very hard for this team to get an inside linebacker in round one. I thought it was the biggest need after watching Derrick Henry just run all over us in the divisional game, 195 yards. You know, I knew that we needed an inside linebacker going into this offseason. And Patrick Queen, everyone knows I prefer Kenneth Murray, but Patrick Queen, I think, was a very good pick. The Ravens stuck to their board. They got their guy at 28. We did not have to trade up. I think Eric DeCosta just did an excellent job just with pure value standpoint in this draft. I think Daniel Jeremiah even said that it was one of the best value picks for him in this draft, and I trust everything Daniel Jeremiah said. He said that Queen plays like a Raven. Jeremiah actually worked for the Ravens as a scout for I think 10 years, before he got into NFL Network. And he said that throughout the whole process that Queen played like a Raven. He had that written down. And a lot of things on film impressed me about Queen. You know, he's just that read and react linebacker. He's very smart. He's quick to diagnose things. He's just that see ball, get ball linebacker. What do you guys think about Queen?
I mean, off the bat, incredible instincts. He was only a 1-year starter at LSU, which is a little bit of an area of concern, but also means he has a ton of room to grow. Incredible athleticism. He can blitz, and he's great in man-on-man coverage, which is important because as much as the Ravens blitz, we really leave our linebackers out on an island by themselves a lot, and he can really hold his own out there.
And just to piggyback off of that, I mean, the last final stretch of his collegiate career was just phenomenal, you know, including the national championship game. He was the defensive pretty much player of the game. And also, he just kept getting better and better and better. He's just fast. He's explosive. He jumps off the tape, honestly. I think he's a great fit. And also, the Ravens been prioritizing that interior defense. We saw it on Derek Worth, Calais Campbell. They want to stop the run. He's going to be a great fit for this team.
Yeah, I think one thing about Patrick Queen is you guys just need those big boys up front to keep them clean. We have that beef up front. We have Brandon Williams, one of the best run stuffing nose tackles in the league, period. We have Calais Campbell. We have Derek Wolfe. So we'll be able to keep Patrick Queen clean. And we'll be able to allow him to just do what he does best, which is just be sideline to sideline, roam the field, and make plays. He's a student of the game. I wrote down that he could play Mike or Will. When I watch film of this guy, I think that he's smart enough to take on the Mike role. And another thing about Patrick Queen is he's only 20 years old. There's a lot of room for him to grow.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch his ball tracking instincts with our guys up front wreaking havoc, he will be able to chase it down and clean it up. I think he's a great addition to the team.
Yeah, I agree. Like with Patrick Queen, the thing that really strikes me the most is he doesn't have very many solo tackles, but I think it's still kind of that he's learning the position. He still has a lot of room to grow. And one interesting thing to note is people like to say that Queen's undersized, and they like to rag him for that. But Ray Lewis was about the same size as Patrick Queen when he first got drafted. And we all saw what Ray Lewis turned into. I'm obviously not trying to make that comparison, but it's very similar in that terms of both of them, their biggest concern coming out of college being undersized.
Well, DaCosta did say on his phone call with Queen after the draft that good things come in threes, comparing him to the draft picks of Ray Lewis and CJ Mosley. So those are big shoes to fill, but clearly the Ravens feel like he is capable of doing that.
Yeah, an interesting comparison I had for Patrick Queen is I think he reminds me a lot of Deion Jones. And Deion Jones was similar to Patrick Queen coming out. He was a sideline to sideline guy, good in coverage, and they're about the same size coming out. Same with Quan Alexander, all those LSU guys, Devin White, Quan Alexander, Deion Jones. I think if Patrick Queen can turn into one of those guys, I think we got ourselves a pretty good football player.
Yeah, and the Ravens did have some timely play from linebackers last season. Josh Bynes, LJ Fort really stepped up, but clearly this was a point of emphasis coming into the offseason, particularly the draft. The addition of Malik Harrison in the third round, too, really solidified that core.
They can get some momentum now with the first down, but maybe not. Wow, what a hit. Malik Harrison.
I really like him. Led OSU in tackles his junior and senior seasons. I see him more as a two-down linebacker because he has pass coverage problems, but his comparison, they compared him on draft night on ESPN to Dante Hightower, a longtime NFL vet and all-pro. I think he'll make a great addition, too.
Yeah, I could see that Hightower comparison, but the guy that I personally thought Harrison, my bad, reminded me on film was Josie Jewell, which is a very solid linebacker for the Broncos. Just more of a downhill throwback, run-stopping type linebacker. He's physical. He doesn't have the instincts that Patrick Queen has per se, but I think him and Queen complement each other well. The things that Harrison doesn't do very well, Patrick Queen does very well. So if you get what I mean by that, I think they complement each other very well.
And I agree. I mean, Harrison to me, it's like a 1-2 punch. Harrison's more of the physical linebacker. He's long, he's thick. He can use that length and build up the speed to pounce on his opponents. And the thing is, too, like I said, he's just way more physical to me than Queen. So I think that's really going to be a dynamic punch because he's more of the thumper that we're kind of known for as a Raven fan base, when we are linebackers.
Yeah, I think that with Queen and Harrison both, I think we might, as Ravens fans, get what we missed out on with CJ Mosley and Zach Orr. We only got to see that for 1 year. And I think with Queen and Harrison as a linebacker duo, we might be able to see that for multiple years, which really entices me as a Ravens fan for sure.
Also, Harrison, I think he's going to be big on special teams. The Ravens, we know we're big on special teams. John Harbaugh, I think he's going to be a big addition on that special team. He's going to make a lot of noise there, too.
Yeah, Harrison was also the second Ohio State player we took in the draft. The first one, obviously, being J.K. Dobbins, the running back in the second round.
Dobbins breaks a tackle, watch out! Burst of speed! Look at this freshman! J.K. Dobbins! Touchdown!
Took him at pick 55, the same pick we took Ray Rice at, and say what you want about him, but that pick turned out pretty well. Rice is second all-time in Ravens rush yards, only behind Jamal Lewis, and in his prime, he made the Pro Bowl 3 out of 4 years, and you hope Dobbins can live up to that pick. I know some people question the pick, thinking we had bigger needs elsewhere, but really, there's no question about the talent. I was surprised to see him still on the board. And when you look at it back at the Ray Rice pick, the same pick, people questioned that pick if that was a need for us because Willis McGahee was coming off a season before with over 1,200 yards, 4.1 per carry. He was a Pro Bowler, and he was only 26. Even though the Ravens had a monster year rushing last year with Mark Ingram, Ingram's 30 years of age, and he dealt with calf injuries at the end of last season. We're so reliant on the run game. We cannot wait for his production to start declining, even though I think he has plenty left in the tank. This was a great move for the Ravens.
And I wasn't surprised that the Ravens picked him. I was surprised that he was still on the board, but I wasn't surprised they picked him because they've always had that best player available mentality throughout these drafts. And that, with Ozzie Newsome and Eric DeCosta, he's no different. So I wasn't surprised by that. But another thing, Mark Ingram, he's turning 31 next year. These running backs, once they get 32, 33, they start to decline. You only see a very rare breed of running backs in that age bracket can keep it up the momentum to be like 1,000+ yard rusher. So I think there's also a future pick because I believe he's going to be that number one running back within the next 1 or 2 years.
100% agree. You look at guys like Todd Gurley, Shady McCoy, go back a couple years to Marco Murray. These guys fall off fast. Mark Ingram, like I said, was phenomenal last year, still has stuff left to offer, but Dobbins can be an impact player now and for the future. And he runs like Mark Ingram. They're both in size and play style. Ingram's listed at 5'9", 215, Dobbins 5'10", 217. They're both between the tacklers, runners. They don't mess around too much, north-south. Agility doesn't wow you on film, but they can certainly make you miss in the open field, and they play smart.
Yeah, I think J.K. Dobbins, he reminds me of Mark Ingram and Ray Rice both in a little bit. He's like about the same size as him. He's 5'9", 205 pounds. That's about the same size as Mark Ingram and Ray Rice. I think Ingram's like 5'10", 210, and Ray Rice was like 5'8", 205, so about similar size. I think they run similar. Like, they're not flashy runners. They're just straight, consistent, like bullish runners. Like, they both run low to the ground. They all have nice balance. And another thing about J.K. Dobbins, too, is he's the second all-time leading rusher in Ohio State history. And that says a lot considering the history of running backs in this program, whether it's Archie Griffin, Eddie George, Ezekiel Elliott. He's only behind Archie Griffin in terms of history at Ohio State. He is above both Ezekiel Elliott and Eddie George, which both turned out to be pretty good running backs in the NFL.
No question. His production was off the charts. And if you also look at it, he did so well in an offense that was primarily RPOs and read option plays, which is similar to our offense in the NFL. Justin Fields is a dual threat quarterback, and Dobbins fit in super well with him. Smooth transitions, did a great job with vision, handoffs. I think he'll fit in great with the team.
Yeah, one other thing about J.K. Dobbins is he was a true freshman that started at Ohio State. When does that ever happen? Like, when does anyone ever come in as a true freshman and start at Ohio State unless you're really, really, really good?
And I agree too. Another thing about Dobbins to me is he reminds me a lot of Ray Rice in a lot of ways. Just the way he can wiggle around, just have that like execution, just to take off and just go. I mean, there's a couple plays just me watching. He just finds a hole and he's just gone. I mean, he's leaving everybody behind him. He's really explosive. I really feel like that's going to be a really good fit for this offense. Going to be a really good fit for him. And Lamar Jackson as well. He's going to create a lot of opportunities for Dobbins because you got to think everyone's looking at Lamar. Is he going to run? Is he going to throw? Just putting the ball to his chest, making fans look for one extra second. Okay, who we going after? And then boom, run the football. Dobbins find that hole, takes off. Lamar Jackson's going to be very key, just like he was last season to Mark Ingram.
Yeah, one thing about what Eric DeCosta has already said is the Ravens plan on keeping all four of these running backs: Ingram, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and Justice Hill. And they're going to run all four of them. They're going to use all four of these guys. And that's going to create a real problem for defenses because they all kind of bring different traits. Like, Ingram and Dobbins are kind of similar, but Gus Edwards is that power, in your face, get tough yards type back. And then Justice Hill is that change of pace, lightning out of bottle type back. And they're going to use all four, and they're going to pound them.
Yeah, and you throw Lamar Jackson in that mix, it's going to be a nightmare for defensive coordinators. And you think about the 49ers last year with Breida, Moistert, and Coleman. You see a three-headed dragon in the backfield. They did an exceptional job executing it, and I think we can have the same thing here.
Now, I know in the beginning of the draft, once we picked Patrick Queen, then we picked Dobbins, some people think, okay, when is the Ravens going to go wide receiver here? And I felt it was very important that Eric DeCosta did not reach for a receiver early in this round. I was glad when he came out a couple days before the draft saying, hey, we can find a wide receiver in the 5th, 4th, 6th round here. There's a lot of players out there, and I agree 110%. There's at least, like, to me, 10 to 15 wide receivers that's going to be game changers in the NFL. So I was glad they waited, and found the perfect two wide receivers in this draft. But more importantly, Devin Duvernay.
Here's a shot. They've got Duvernay. He makes a leaping extended grab for the touchdown.
He's an animal. He's explosive. He has an attitude to him. He plays angry. He plays mad. I mean, just seeing how he goes, just runs through these defenders once he gets the ball in his hands. Reminds you a little bit of Anquan Bolden. Steve Smith can make those contested catches, and he's fast. And the one thing the Ravens have emphasized with their wide receivers, with Howard Brown, is speed. They want to be fast on the field, period. Lamar Jackson, Brown, Andrews, I feel like, once he gets the ball, they're run after the catch, he can get going. And now adding Duvernay here, it's all about the speed, going for the deep ball, the deep threat, play action pass. He's going to be a huge fit. I had him as like maybe a second, third round talent. And I believe he's close to being a first round talent, but he is somewhat limited. But he's really explosive. He's mean. He fits that Ravens mold. And I feel like he's going to fill in that hole that Steve Smith left after he, of course, retired.
Yeah, I like that Steve Smith comparison a lot. They're both short, play with a little chip on their shoulder. Duvernay showed the ability to make contested catches, and his production was off the charts his final season. 106 catches, certainly has that game-breaking speed once he gets an open field. Was a track star in high school, and you can see it on his deep routes. He just blows by defenders. They say he runs like a running back, and you kind of see it. He's low to the ground. He's not afraid of contact. He's not smooth like a lot of wide receivers in the league. I think that's why teams kind of shied away from him. But to me, I think that's the Ravens seek that out in their players. They want them to play with that chip and that edge.
Oh, yeah, I for sure agree. I think Duvernay runs like a running back with the ball in his hands. And the guy that I really think he runs like is Deebo Samuel, who's on the 49ers. You guys saw what he did last year. He just runs angry. Like, he's not going to try to out-juke you. He's going to try to run through you. And that's what I think brings a little bit different element to Devin Duvernay is he's different from all these other wide receivers, mostly of them. Like, he's going to try to bowl you over.
And you saw how excited Harbaugh was on that clip after we got Duvernay in the draft. Clearly, he has a lot of plans to use him in some creative ways to get him on the field as a rookie, as an impact player.
Yes, I mean, I was excited. I mean, I thought the Patriots and Bill Belichick was going to take him from us. I mean, I was like, no, please let Bill Belichick take anybody else. Don't take this guy. I was glad that he did it. I know the Ravens glad that they didn't. But to me, though, he's not going to be I think he's going to be a big weapon. I think he's going to be a good third, fourth receiver. But the guy that I'm really impressed with, honestly, is James Prochet.
Bouchel looking long for Prochet. He brings it in! James Prochet with one hand!
This guy just catches every single thing. He has, to me, one of the best hands, if not the best hands in this draft class. Caught 209 catches and 27 touchdowns just over 2 years. He just can do everything. I mean, now the only thing about him, he's not a precise route runner, and that's the thing that's going to be kind of bother some fans and maybe bothering watching the film. That's something that I believe we can coach. But this guy, you can't coach his hands. This guy catches everything in a very tight radius, can make the one-hand grabs, tight contested catches. He's really just precise. And I really feel like he can one day be the big-time playmaker on this offense alongside Brown and maybe even over Boykin. I know a lot of people have some hopes in Boykin, but I really like this James Prochet guy.
I'm high on Prochet too. 111 catches his senior year, was first in all of college football. A little bit of a smoother runner than Duvernay. And also at SMU, he did kick and punt returns, which is an area the Ravens have been looking to improve on over the past couple seasons. So we'll see what they do with Anthony Thomas going into the offseason, see if Prochet can take that role and be an impact player on the offense side of the ball. That would be big. Once again, you watch his tape, he can make those contested catches, but you see the Ravens were looking to add proven guys with productivity, not just talent.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And one thing Prochet has, like, as you mentioned, you can't teach his hands. And another thing that Prochet has, it's just pure ball tracking ability. His ball skills are excellent, some of the best in this class. He's just so good at locating the ball and making the catch. And that's something that I think differentiates from the rest of our receivers besides maybe Hollywood.
My one area of concern for these two guys is run blocking. You look at, we didn't lose a lot in terms of wide receivers offseason, but Seth Roberts and Hayden Hurst at tight end, both of them did a great job in run blocking situations. Prochet and Duvernay, they don't have the size and the arm length of those guys to get on the outside and seal the edge. We'll see how that goes. I know Boykin's an excellent run blocker, but as a team that's primarily running and led the league in 20-yard plus runs last season, these guys need to be able to hit a little better and get outside and seal their blocks.
Oh yeah, and one other concern I have with Prochet is that he doesn't really have the athleticism that you really look for. He doesn't have like the size or the speed or the quickness, but he makes up with it with his hands and ball skills, obviously.
And one thing I loved about him, though, SMU, you don't think of a quarterback play when you think of SMU. One thing I loved is he's great at the late, last-minute adjustments, the ball tracking, and he's great at extending the play when he's kind of bailing out his quarterback. I might overthrow the ball, didn't throw the ball right where it needed to go. He can extend the play and pretty much save that whole play from just being a disaster. That's one thing I do love about him. And Lamar Jackson, he keeps developing as a passer, but there was some throws this season and definitely last season where the ball just gets away from him. He's kind of too quick on it. And you're going to have that guy in Prochet who can extend that play and make the play for Lamar when, the rest comes and pocket breaks down.
Yeah, I know some people were mad we didn't address wide receiver issues earlier in the draft, but we clearly got two impact players here and did a great job both in need and in value with these picks. And I think we did a nice job elsewhere in the draft with that, like on the defensive line. That was certainly an area of need, and we addressed that with two picks too.
And it's Afonso who's dragged down in the backfield. Wonderful play defensively by the big fella, Broderick Washington. Starkle, they tried to hit the corner coming inside. Picked off. Intercepted by Matabike.
Oh yeah, for sure. Our defensive line picks, you guys know that I absolutely love these picks. And I know fans are not going to be happy with this pick, but Eric DeCosta really stuck to his BPA mentality with taking these two defensive linemen. And he's looking at the roster from now and for the future. And he looks at this roster. Brandon Williams could be gone after this year. His cap number is extremely high. Calais Campbell is only signed here on a 2-year deal, and Derek Wolfe is only signed here on a 1-year deal. And it's not like any of these guys are spring chickens either. These guys are all veterans. They're all kind of older, and they all could regress at any time. So I think getting this extra depth on the defensive line was crucial. And Justin Madubuike was one of my favorite picks in this class, In my opinion, he's the best pass rushing defensive lineman in this whole class. He had like 51 pressures throughout his college career, which I think is absolutely insane for a defensive tackle.
Yes, certainly. Both these guys do a great job providing pressure up the middle. Washington's a little interesting because they moved him around the line at Texas Tech, so he can provide pass rushing from multiple positions, but definitely as a team that blitzes more than anyone in the league over the past 2 seasons, having these guys bring pressure up the middles, fighting through double teams, working through blocks, that's going to be a game changer for our defense.
And what I love about these two guys is the situation. They're in the perfect situation. They get to learn, develop behind this already great defensive line we're building with Wolf, with Campbell, with Brandon Williams as well. And you have a great defensive line coach, I believe, in Joe Cullen. They're going to have time to sit down. They're still going to get in the rotation. Like you said, we blitz better than any other team. Wink Mardell, he's great for his exotic defensive blitz schemes. But they're going to be able to learn and develop. And I believe that's going to be the best thing for these two guys, especially, I believe, Washington, he's just versatile. He can line up at 3 or the 5 technique. He just can line up different multiple spots. I feel like he's going to be a big-time playmaker in the interior side of the ball in the future.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And like Justin Madubuike, like you said, potential. And Justin Madubuike, when I watched him on film, sometimes when I saw some of the plays he made, I was like, dang, this is a young Geno Atkins. And I think if he turns out to be anywhere close to Geno Atkins, the Ravens got a very good player here. And Justin Madubuike, one thing he does is he wins with both strength and speed. He ran a 4.83 40, I believe, and he had like 31 bench press reps. And I think that combination of size and strength is just going to be really good for this defense. He wins with leverage, he wins with strength, he wins with quickness. He can win with all of those moves. The biggest concern I have with Madubuike is he lacks consistency. He shows flashes here and there, but he really does lack consistency. But I think with him, learning behind these veteran defensive linemen and turning them loose in a year or two, I think he's going to be really nasty for his defense.
Yeah, if you watched the draft, you heard Mel Kiper Jr., a Baltimore native, just rave about Madubuike. And also, if you paid attention to this offseason, clearly defensive line was an area of concern for the Ravens. They did a lot of shifting up front, getting rid of Wormley. Pierce is gone. They tried to bring aboard Brockers. That didn't work. And then the additions of Derek Wolf and Campbell. These two will be great additions. I'm expecting them to play. They won't be three down guys on the defensive line, but certainly with the veterans we have up there, they'll be great additions and they'll add some depth to a line that desperately needed it.
Yeah, and another thing about Broderick Washington is this guy's just insanely smart. He can recognize blocking schemes pre-snap and where blockers are going to be. He has an extremely high work ethic, and he was a 3-year starter and a 2-time captain at Texas Tech. So that kind of shows what that program thinks about him.
And as much as I love Washington, the one thing I did notice when watching the tape is he does have that power, but I saw that the big bodies, offensive linemen are a very tough matchup for him. And especially in this NFL, you got big guys on the O-line. I do feel like it's going to be a problem, but it can be addressed. But it's a little alarming when it came to the big double teams and the big offensive linemen. He kind of struggled a little bit in some games.
Yeah, but like a thing about Washington is a lot like Patrick Queen. He may be a bit undersized, but one thing he has is just instincts. He's just really smart, good at reading and reacting. He's good at holding the lineman in place and just finding where the ball carrier is. So I think that's something that's going to be really useful to this defense, especially when you're trying to defend guys like Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I think clearly the guys in the trenches were a point of emphasis in this draft. 4 picks invested between the defensive and offensive line. And the guys on the offensive line, Tyree Phillips, Big Country is his nickname, been his nickname since high school. The last pick of the 3rd round. You know, the Ravens have found tons of success in the 3rd round with offensive linemen Marshall Yanda and Orlando Brown Jr. And Phillips, hopefully, is just the next in a long list of great picks. He's an absolute bulldozer, tons of strength, great size, great length. He started his college career at East Mississippi Community College before transferring to Mississippi State, where he was only 1-year starter. His problems, he's not as agile as you'd like him to be. He played tackle in college. You'd probably kick him inside to guard position. He reminds me a lot of DJ Fluker, who is the Ravens' newest addition. Phillips is 6'5", 331. Fluker 6'5", 342. He can learn and study under him. I don't expect him to be a starter his rookie year, but certainly someone who can come in with versatility playing tackle and guard.
Yeah, the thing with Phillips that stands out to me is I think he has Kelechi Osemele potential. And I think when the Ravens were scouting Phillips, they thought that he was a guy that had a similar profile to Kelechi Osemele coming out of college. I mean, like you said, Phillips is 6'5", 331. I think Osemele was like slightly heavier, but one thing about both of them, they both came out of college as a tackle, and a lot of people project Phillips to be a guard. That's what Osemele turned into. So I think as prospects, they were very, very similar, and also in terms of the fact that they're both bulldozers in the running game and are a bit inconsistent in pass protection.
We'll see if the Ravens have Phillips slim down a little bit to add a little bit more athleticism. Certainly, his lateral quickness and footwork is an area of concern. But for someone who has athletic ability questions, he was able to pull extremely well when they moved him inside, and we ask a lot of our guys up front in doing that, clearing out space for the linebackers. So it would be great if he's able to take that next step and be an Osemele or a Fluker for us.
And his athleticism was a big concern for me. He's just a little bit slow coming off the ball. And like you say, he kind of lacks in that lateral quickness. And another thing that I didn't really this out of all the picks, this is the pick that I really didn't like, only because I really thought they was going to go the edge rusher with this pick. So it kind of took me back a little bit when they did draft Phillips. But like you said, I think he can improve and he can be a good talent for us. But the lack of athleticism is kind of a big concern for me.
Yeah, I think the Ravens kind of reached for need here, but you can't really fault them with all their previous picks beforehand.
Yeah, and then the second offensive lineman taken in the draft, Ben Bredesen out of Michigan. I have to assume that John Harbaugh connection played a role in this Michigan player. Bredesen is known as a fighter up front. He has a competitive edge to him, a little chip on his shoulder. You know, if he has no one lined up in front of him, he's not sitting still. He's looking for work. He's coming for a double team. He has short arms. That was the concern for him, which short arms proven to struggle with lengthy, athletic, rangy pass rushers at the NFL. And, you know, we have a lot of that in this division with Carlos Dunlap and TJ Watt. but certainly someone with a lot of upside potential. He was a 2-year captain at Michigan, a 4-year starter, just a coach's dream. You have to assume that brother connection played a role in us reaching a little bit to get this pick.
Oh yeah, for sure. Bredesen, when you come into Ann Arbor as a true freshman and start for a program that prestigious and be a 4-year starter, I think that really says something about you. And with Bredesen is he reminds me a lot of the guy we took in the 4th round last year, which is Ben Powers. And I think these two are going to compete head to head for that starting right guard spot along with DJ Fluker.
And I thought Ben was a true Ravens pick when it comes to offensive lineman. He got the broad shoulders. He can fit the NFL guard frame pretty well. And he's a hard worker. He looks for work when he's uncovered. He gets down and dirty with the best of them. This is a pick that I really did like, and I believe he's going to have more potential over Phillips in the long run. So I really did like this pick for the Ravens.
Yeah, Bredesen's kind of that blue collar lunch pail hit you in the mouth type guy. He's just gonna have the one of the highest work ethics on the team, just be a leader and a guy that everyone in the locker room is gonna love.
Yeah, his teammates absolutely raved about him. They said he was a great teammate. Obviously, the coaches loved him as a 2-year captain. My one concern with this pick was Tyler Biadasz was still on the board, the center out of Wisconsin. He won the award for nation's best center. He can play center or guard. The Cowboys swooped him up. But I think that Michigan-Ravens connection definitely played a factor. We think this guy is more than just a teammate, more than just a hard-nosed guy who'll get in the gym. He'll actually be able to translate that work onto the field.
Yeah, another interesting thing to note too is Jack Harbaugh, which is John's father, actually texted him after the Ravens made this pick and said, "You're gonna love this kid."
And obviously having a brother at Michigan, that played a huge part in it. And I believe John got a lot of inside information on this guy. And this is just showing once again the Ravens can find talent over and over again throughout this draft. But I believe one of the best talents they found was in the late round, actually the last pick in Geno Stone.
On 4th and 6, Tanner Lee, underneath throw, and Geno Stone, a big hit on Stanley Morgan Jr.
To me, this guy right here is the next big time, unheard of guy that just comes out of nowhere and just takes the league over, takes it by storm. I believe this guy's going to be a starter for us within the next couple of years because here's the thing: he does have a average size. He doesn't really pop off to you, but when you really look in the film, he has no hesitation to pull the trigger in the run support, which I love. He's quick to have lock onto the quarterback eyes as soon as he sees a route break. His awareness is just amazing how aware he is. And another thing that I love about him, his IQ. To me, this is a guy that's smart. He's going to be a lead on the defense side of the ball. And to me, he's going to be a next Chuck Clark for us in the long run.
Yeah, like you said, I kind of agree with that Chuck Clark comparison because, like, Chuck Clark, he lacks in athleticism, but where he lacks that athleticism, he makes up for it in smarts, exactly how Geno Stone does. And, like, Geno Stone, when you get someone from the Iowa program with Kirk Ferentz, you know they're going to be extremely well coached, they're going to be extremely tough, and they're going to be extremely smart, which is all three traits that the Ravens really value when they look for players.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Stone still on the board here. You know, they talked about it during the draft. You watch Stone's tape, his athleticism does not pop off the screen. You're not wowed by anything, but he does his job extremely well. He's a sound tackler. And that Chuck Clark comparison, if you look at it, Clark was brought along slowly and is now a starter on a great defense. I expect the same path for Geno Stone. He'll start on special teams because he's a sure tackler and be an impact player there and slowly be brought in the secondary. I think this was a great value pick if you look at it. Lots of upside, very little risk.
Oh, I had Stone graded as a 4th round player, and when we got him to the 7th, I was ecstatic. I was so excited when that happened.
I think something that gets overlooked, though, is also what the Ravens do after the draft. We, for 16 straight years, have signed an undrafted free agent to the initial 53-man roster. That's incredible. You look at some areas of needs we didn't address in the draft. We picked up 2 great tight ends as undrafted free agents, a big-time center, people that will not only be roster fillers for preseason, but come in and compete to make that initial roster.
Yes, I definitely agree there. And speaking of the 2 big tight ends, to me, you had Breland from Oregon.
Herbert, play action. All day to throw. The deep shot for Jacob Breland. Touchdown, Oregon.
And I think he's going to be, to me, he's kind of interesting because the one big knack I have on the guy is he can't, and I'm not going to say he can't, his blocking. He just doesn't block, and that's going to be a big problem. You think about tight ends, Mark Andrews, Nick Board. To me, he's the best blocking tight end in the league. That's a concern. But the thing about this guy, he can catch the football. He moves like a running back. I mean, you can think he can probably convert into a running back, 4-back position. But I do think he can possibly make this team simply because he can change his route speed to keep the coverage off balance. He's efficient in movement with his routes. His footwork is one thing I love about him. He can get in and out of his breaks fast. So I think he's going to be – I think he has a huge potential to be that third tight end and that big time group we had last year with Andrews, Boyle, and Hurst. I really do feel like he can move into that role in the near future, but you're going to have to develop him. You're going to have to work on him with the blocking.
Yeah, definitely that third tight end spot is up for grabs coming into the season. Trading Hayden Hurst didn't really replace him in free agency or in the draft. 2 undrafted free agents will come in and compete for that spot. I'm assuming the Ravens will run less 3 tight end sets, but it was such a big part of our playbook, I can't imagine they cut it out entirely. Maybe they think Patrick Ricard, another undrafted free agent, can slide in those heavy package situations and take over that third tight end role. But who knows? Breland and Wolf out of Georgia, certainly guys that will come in and compete.
And speaking of, you brought up Wolf. The one thing I like about Wolf is he's always been consistent. Every year he got better and better and better. And and the one thing that he can do that Breland can't is he can block. And he's just a very good at catching the football. So when you think of Wolf, I think he has a good of a chance just as Breland to make this team because he can block and he can catch. He was very consistent in his college. And I think he's going to really have potential to be a dynamic tight end. But these guys can go either way. I do feel like they're going to fill that position. I don't think they're going to stray away from the 3 tight end set because it works so well for them. But it's going to be very interesting to see what they do there.
Yeah, if you look at Breland and Wolf, really different styles. I think it's be a matter of preference. I think we're going to see them lining up in different scenarios in preseason, and whoever can perform better will get that spot.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And one other undrafted free agent I think we should really keep our eye on is Daka, the kid out of James Madison. He led the FCS in sacks last year. So you guys already know that he's going to bring production into this team, but maybe at a smaller level, but I think he's still a guy we need to watch out for.
Yep, certainly out of JMU. He gets a little looked over, a little slept on, but they're a powerhouse for their conference. He was the leader in sacks, comes in with that Ravens mentality, that Ravens effort, someone that you want on the field in the preseason, giving it 100%, fighting for that spot. So certainly someone to watch.
And going off of Ravens mentality and effort, I loved Tristan Colon Costello they got from Missouri. He played in a tough conference in SEC. He can make the calls, communicate well with the teammates, and he's gritty. He reminds me a little bit of Alex Lewis, a little bit of Alex Lewis because he's just so gritty. He's tough. That's one thing I love about him. He can deliver the big blow. I think run blocking is going to be key for him as well. And at the center position, I think it's kind of wide open a little bit. So I feel like he can be a nice developmental project.
Yeah, and certainly after Makari came in as an undrafted free agent last season and played so well up front, I'm sure every offensive lineman that signed as an undrafted free agent with the Ravens knows that they have a shot.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And another undrafted free agent that I want to watch out for is Christian Welch, the kid we took from Iowa, the second Iowa player we got out of this draft. He's just a smart, tough football player, kind of like Geno Stone. He doesn't have the greatest athleticism, but he's going to bring a guy that's going to work very hard, and I think he can very well compete for that 4th linebacker role with Taro Laka and Chris Board.
Now, the one thing I'm kind of hoping out of all these undrafted free agent signings is one thing I know is Nick Vogel, the kicker. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, is there any way that Eric DeCosta can get this kicker and then trade him for maybe a 5th-round pick, 4th-round pick? I'm just saying because he did it before. So when I saw Nick Vogel, I'm just like, okay, maybe Eric DeCosta might be a wizard and do it again. I'm going to be kind of looking out for that one. Just maybe to get a draft pick.
I don't know if any GMs are falling for that again after Vedvik flopped in the NFL last year, but maybe, DeCosta can work some magic. I think that pick ended up turning out into Marcus Peters, so worked out pretty well for the Ravens. That's why you never want to sleep on these undrafted free agent signings.
Yeah, these undrafted free agent signings, they're either going to bring impact to this team or they could potentially be used as trade bait to get us something better down the road.
And at the very least, they're going to come in in the summer and work hard.
Oh yeah, these guys are gonna have a chip on their shoulder. They're gonna be motivated. They're gonna be flat out mad that they did not get selected at all in the draft. And you're gonna see that during training camp and everything else. It's just how motivated these guys are. What is your guys' overall thoughts on this draft now since we just discussed it?
Obviously, with 10 selections, you have to just love both the quantity and the talent we acquired in this draft. I think it was A across the board. Obviously, understandably, we're all a little biased, but clearly they addressed areas of needs. They didn't reach too far for any players. I think it was a home run.
I have to agree with you. I think this draft was definitely a home run, and it was a critical draft. You got to think we just got done year 2 of the Lamar Jackson era, and now he's 0-2 in the playoffs. We saw it happen against Tennessee. The pressure's kind of on for Lamar. They're kind of okay. We need to see you can win a playoff game here. And the big need was to me interior stopping the run. Eric DeCosta addressed that throughout this entire draft. His offseason moves. Patrick Queen's going to be a big time day one starter. I think that's going to be huge for this team. I think this Ravens defense is better than it was before, especially in the run defense. So I'm really hoping this draft and at least get 2 to 3 starters out of this draft that play big dividends for us and get us over that hump and get Lamar Jackson over that hump in the playoffs.
Yeah, like you were talking about, that playoff game, the two things that really hurt us in that playoff game was obviously not stopping Derrick Henry and then the drops from all our players. We went out and got two of the best hands for receivers in this class. Like out of all the receivers I scouted, the 4 that had the best hands were CeeDee Lamb, Devin Duvernay, James Prochet, and Michael Pittman Jr. We end up with 4 of them, just guys that do not drop a single thing. And as well as all the beef we added up front. Derrick Henry gashed us for 195 yards. Eric DeCosta went out and said, we're not going to let that happen to us again. He spends 2 picks on 2 defensive linemen and Justin Madubuike and Broderick Washington Jr. And then he takes the linebackers, obviously, and Patrick Queen and Malik Harrison, who complement each other very well. And I think that's going to be our linebacker duo of the future.
Yeah, you look across the board, we really stuck with that best player available mentality, definitely for the first 3 rounds. It was a great draft. If you look at teams in similar situations, the 49ers, they addressed key areas of needs for losses in free agency. The Ravens were fortunate enough not to have too many major losses, Yanda and Michael Pierce, but they were able to replace those with Calais Campbell and some picks in this draft. We really got better. We brought in guys who play like Ravens, who play hard, and who will be impact players from day one, and then in the future as well.
And I love that the Ravens did not reach for a wide receiver. So many people, the Ravens should take a wide receiver first round. I'm so glad they didn't do it. They stuck to their board because Lamar Jackson led the league in passing touchdowns this year. And we didn't even have a true number 1 wide receiver. Our number 1 wide receiver to me is Mark Andrews. We didn't have a true number 1 wide receiver. So, and the Ravens never really had that in team history. So to me, the receiver wasn't a big need, but they got 2 big-time players that can develop into big-time playmakers on this offense. That's a plus, and they were able to address the interior side, the defense side of the ball, and especially in the run game. Because think about it, the Ravens ranked 21st in the league when it came to yards per carry, and that to me was 4.4, which is the highest average in franchise history. That's alarming. Eric DeCosta said, I'm going to come in, we're going to fix it as a unit, as a team. We're going to stop the run. We already have the best secondary in the NFL. We're going to stop the run. So there's no way you can beat us. If you're going to beat us, you're going to have to play your best football that day because this defense is going to be fast, it's going to be mean, it's going to be nasty, and here comes the blitzes, and here comes the pressure.
Okay, before we wrap this thing up completely, what was your guys' favorite picks of the draft?
I got to go J.K. Dobbins. I think people always undervalue running backs, and especially early running back picks. I understand you can get good 2-down or a 3rd-down running back late in the draft, but these top running backs really come in those first 2 days. He's going to fit in great with the Ravens. He's going to be an immediate impact player. He'll take over for Mark Ingram. We saw the Ravens execute that transition perfectly in the past with Willis McGahee and Ray Rice. I think this will be another seamless transition, and then you're going to have a deadly 2-headed dragon in the backfield for hopefully years to come with Lamar Jackson and J.K. Dobbins.
Favorite pick definitely had to be Patrick Queen, simply because this guy's just explosive. He just jumps off every time you see him in the film. Yes, he was a 1-year starter, but throughout every game, especially late in the stretch, he just got better and better and better. And this guy's going to be competitive. He's hardworking. He's fast. Yes, he's undersized, but he makes up for that in so many different areas. And that inside linebacker position was voided. I mean, after C.J. Mosley left, it wasn't addressed until I believe now in this draft. He's going to fill in that big void. He's going to continue the lineage of Ray Lewis, C.J. Mosley, and be that next man up, be a leader on the defense. I love the Patrick Queen pick. I'm glad we got him. This is the guy I wanted us to get, so gotta go with Patrick Queen.
Yeah, like you said, Patrick Queen was probably my favorite pick too. I think he's going to be the next great Ravens linebacker for his defense for the next 10 plus years, like Ray Lewis was, like we hoped CJ Mosley would become. And I think he's just smart enough to become that Mike linebacker in this defense instantly and just let him roam around, make plays. We have the beef up front to keep him clean, like I said earlier. And like I said earlier also, he's only 20 years old. He has room to grow. Well, guys, I think that's all we got for this week. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. The support on this is going to go a long way to making sure this podcast can grow the way we want it to. We're looking forward to doing this again next Friday. You can find this podcast available to you on all your favorite podcast platforms, including SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Once again, make sure to follow me on Instagram at everything_Ravens, and also follow the podcast account at Everything Ravens Podcast. Also, make sure to follow my two awesome co-hosts today at Kyrie31 and at Brooks_Lebo, spelled Lebow. I think you guys both did a fantastic job. Another big shout today to our executive producer, Spencer, at Spence Silverstein on Instagram. He's going to do a fantastic job getting this podcast up to running and up to quality for your entertainment. Also, follow our music producer, the guy who created the awesome intro for this podcast, on Instagram at I am Jack Average on Instagram. He did a fantastic job creating this. Once again, I'm Logan signing off. We'll see you next week.